I had been in the middle of taping a box of books when she knocked. 3 knocks, unhurried, the kind that aren't asking permission. I knew them the way you know the sounds of someone you have lived across a hallway from for 18 months, by rhythm, by weight, by the particular interval between the second and the third. I set down the tape, stepped over a stack of folded moving blankets, and opened the door. Marisol Vega was standing in the hallway in a gray sweater, her hands in her pockets, her hair down. She had the look of a woman who had made a decision on the way across the hall and was now executing it calmly, the way she did everything. She held my gaze for a moment. Then she said, without prelude, without softening, without any of the exits she could have taken, "Then take me with you." I had spent 18 months inside the careful, functional, warmly boundaried reality of having Marisol Vega as my closest neighbor. I had told myself, across those 18 months, a series of increasingly improbable things about what she meant to me. I had been, by my own estimation, extremely disciplined about all of it. She had just disassembled that discipline with 5 words and a look that left no available version of, "She probably just means she'll miss the building." I stepped back from the door. She came in, and the box of books sat half-taped on my floor, and the moving blanket sat where I had been standing. And I looked at the woman I had been carefully not loving for a year and a half, and understood that the whole structure had been waiting for exactly this. 1 knock, 1 night, 1 sentence with no exit door built into it. My name is Marco Reyes. I'm 36. I'm an urban landscape architect, parks, public green spaces, the slow and arguable work of convincing cities that people need somewhere to sit that isn't inside. I had lived in apartment 4C of the Crestline building for 4 years. A 2-bedroom I used as one, a balcony I used often, a kitchen I had repainted twice because I had opinions about the previous tenant's choice of white. I was moving because the firm had opened a second office, and I had agreed, 6 months ago, and with full professional confidence, to go run it. The city was 200 miles north. The decision had seemed clean and correct at the time. I had told Marisol that afternoon. In passing, the way you tell a neighbor at the mailboxes, her in a coat, me holding 2 envelopes and a package I had signed for on her behalf because she'd been out. I had said, "I'm moving at the end of the month. New office, north." She had looked at me for a moment. Then she had nodded, said something like, "That's a good opportunity," and taken her mail. I had gone back upstairs and packed 3 boxes and told myself I was fine. I was not a reliable narrator of my own condition where Marisol Vega was concerned. I have mentioned this, or I am about to. She was 33. She was a graphic designer who worked mostly from home, a freelancer, organized with a discipline that made my professional tidiness look approximate. She had a studio set up in her 2nd bedroom, 2 monitors, a drawing tablet, reference books arranged by color on a floating shelf. I knew this because she had showed me the shelf in month 4 with the specific pride of someone who had solved a problem beautifully. And I had looked at the books and then at her and thought, I am going to have to be very careful. The shelf became the first thing I described to my friend Dante when he asked, 3 weeks later, what the new neighbor was like. And he had looked at me in the way that old friends look at you when you have answered a question about logistics with information about character. She had dark hair, dark eyes, and a focused stillness that never read as cold. It was the stillness of someone who had decided, long ago, to be where she was and to do what she was doing, and who did not leak attention sideways. She laughed openly when something was funny and not when it wasn't, which made it easy to know where you stood, which made me, specifically, want to be somewhere worth standing. The spare key lived in the inside pocket of my jacket. She had given it to me in month 3, a pipe situation, a plumber who needed access. She'd be at a client meeting. She had pressed it into my hand in the hallway and said, "Give it back whenever. No rush." I had never given it back. She had never asked. Both of us had filed this under practical arrangement, which was the category we filed a number of things that did not belong there. The existing dynamic was neighbors who had become something more specific than neighbors and less specific than anything with a name. We had a shared fluency built from 18 months of small proximity, borrowed things, exchanged packages, the accumulated grammar of two people whose lives had arranged themselves around the same hallway. We had dinner twice, separately invited to the same neighbors' gathering on the 4th floor, and ended up talking all evening at the end of the table while the gathering continued around us. We had walked back down together after midnight, and at her door, she had said goodnight the way she said things, directly, no performance. And I had said goodnight back, and gone into my apartment, and stood in my kitchen for 20 minutes, not doing anything. I told myself this was manageable. I had a high opinion of my own manageability, which Marisol Vega had been quietly dismantling for 18 months, without doing anything I could point to as a specific act. The first time something came fully to the surface was month 7. A Sunday, mid-autumn, the kind of afternoon that arrives slowly and then goes golden at 4 o'clock and makes it difficult to be inside. I was on my balcony with a coffee and the project files I was supposed to be reviewing. Her balcony was adjacent, a glass partition between them, close enough to pass a coffee cup across if either of us had ever done that, which we hadn't, because we were being careful the way you are careful with things that matter. She came out with her own coffee and a sketchbook. She sat in her chair. She didn't say anything, and neither did I. And we were there like that for an hour, both working, both quiet, the city doing its Sunday afternoon things below us. And it was the most settled I had felt in a long time. Which was information I did not know what to do with, and so I didn't do anything with it. Eventually she looked up and said, "You're not reading those files." "I'm thinking about them," I said. "What's the difference?" "One of them produces an invoice," I said. She smiled, the full one, which she gave out when something earned it. Then she went back to her sketchbook. I went back to pretending to read the files. The sun moved. Neither of us went inside until it was dark. That evening, I stood in my kitchen and had a straightforward conversation with myself about what I was doing, and reached no useful conclusions, and made pasta, and went to bed. The second time was month 13. I had a difficult week, a project rejected at the planning stage, the particular professional frustration of work that was good and was told it was wrong. I ran into her Thursday evening at the building entrance, both of us arriving at the same moment, the evening cold and smelling of coming rain. She looked at me once and said, "Come up." I made too much food. This was almost certainly not true. Marisol Vega did not accidentally make too much food. She was precise about everything. I went up. She had made a lamb stew that had been cooking all day, the apartment warm and smelling of garlic and something herbed. We ate at her kitchen table. She asked about the project and listened in the way she listened, completely, first time, no part of her attention elsewhere. And then she said, "They're wrong. The work is right." "You haven't seen the work," I said. "I've seen how you work," she said. "Same thing." I looked at her across the table in the warm kitchen and felt something I had been keeping at a careful distance take one step closer. And I thought about the spare key in my jacket pocket in the balcony afternoon and 18 months of small proximities that had added up to something I didn't have a clean category for. I went home an hour later. I stood in my hallway. I looked at the door across from mine. And I did nothing, because I was her neighbor, and we had something good, and I was not going to be the person who named it wrong and lost it. What I did not account for was that she might be the one to name it. 3 weeks after the lamb stew, the firm offered me the northern posting. I said yes because the work was right, and because I had been making my decisions for 18 months based on what was correct and careful and professionally sound. And that had worked very well in every department except the one that mattered. I told Marisol at the mailboxes. She nodded. She took her mail. I went upstairs and packed 3 boxes and told myself this was the correct outcome of a correctly managed situation. She knocked at 9:15. I opened the door. She stood there, hands in her pockets, gray sweater, hair down, the look of a woman who had spent 3 hours alone in her apartment, deciding something, and was done deciding. Then take me with you. I looked at her. Marisol, don't, she said, not sharply. Just, I know what you're about to do, and I am not giving you the room to do it. I stopped. I have been your neighbor for 18 months, she said. I have been careful about it for 18 months. I gave you a key in month 3 for a plumber, and I never asked for it back because I didn't want it back. I made too much food on a Thursday in October, and you came up and we ate at my table, and you went home. And I stood at my door for 10 minutes deciding whether to knock. I looked at her. You didn't knock, I said. You didn't either, she said. Either of those times, or the balcony, or the mailboxes last week. She looked at me steadily. I'm knocking now. The hallway was the particular quiet of a building at 9:15 on a weeknight. Everyone inside. The hum of the elevators somewhere below. The tape gun was on my floor behind me. The half-packed box of books was visible through the open door. You'd move, I said. 200 miles. I work from home, she said. I have a laptop and a drawing tablet and reference books organized by color. I can do what I do from anywhere. A pause. The question isn't whether I can move. The question is whether you want me to. I had spent 18 months being the person who did not take the available opening. I had been that person at the balcony and in her kitchen and at every point between. I had dressed it up in neighborly good sense and professional clarity, and the genuine fear of mistaking something that worked for something that could be more, and losing it in the attempt. She had just made the attempt. She was standing in the hallway with her hands in her pockets, offering me no exit I hadn't already built myself, and waiting. I reached into my jacket, which was on the hook by the door. I took out the spare key. I held it for a moment, small, brass, worn slightly at the edge from 18 months in my pocket. And then I set it in her hand. Not to return it. She already had a copy. I set it in her hand the way you set something in a person's hand that you want them to keep. She looked down at it. Her fingers closed around it slowly. That's not a no, she said. No, I said. It isn't. She looked up. It's the furthest thing from a no I have, I said, which I should have said at the balcony, or in your kitchen, or at the mailboxes, or at any of the 18 months of occasions I spent being extremely careful instead. She was quiet for a moment. Then she stepped forward, into the doorway, close enough that there was nothing careful left in the distance between us. You can still be careful, she said. Just with me. Not about me. I put my hand up and pushed a piece of hair back from her face, gently, and she stayed where she was and looked at me the way she looked at things she had decided to keep. Okay, I said. Okay, she said. We stood in the doorway for a moment. Then from down the hall, the 4th-floor neighbor's dog, a large, opinionated animal named Gerald, who had opinions about most things, began barking at something with the enthusiasm of a creature who had never once been told that timing mattered. Marisol laughed, the real laugh from somewhere completely unguarded, and it undid any remaining tension in the hallway the way only a laugh like that can. "Gerald," she said. "He always had terrible timing," I said. "He has excellent timing," she said, "and you know it." She came inside. I moved the moving blankets off the sofa. She sat down, the spare key still in her hand, and looked at the half-packed boxes with the focused assessment of someone already thinking about logistics. "The reference books," she said. "What about them?" "They'll need a shelf, same configuration." "I am already thinking about the shelf," I said. She smiled, the full one. "I know," she said. "That's why I knocked." We moved north in the same van at the end of the month, her drawing tablet packed alongside my project files, her color-organized books alongside my books, Gerald's opinion about the whole enterprise audible from the 4th floor as we carried the last of it down. The new apartment had 2 good rooms and a balcony. The balcony was the first thing she assessed. She said it would do. I told her I thought it would do considerably more than that. She agreed, eventually. 2 years later, when people asked how it had happened, Marisol said, "He was moving away, and I decided I wasn't interested in that outcome." I would have said, "She knocked at 9:15 with her hands in her pockets and said 5 words that made 18 months of careful feel like a very long way to go for a conclusion I'd already reached." And then I gave her a key she already had a copy of, which is the least efficient romantic gesture in recorded history, but which she has never once let me forget. We were both right. Both versions of the story are true. The spare key is on her keyring now. Has been since that night. She says it's the same one, I believe her. It has the same worn edge. I have never asked her to verify this, because some things are better left as the version that fits. Nothing had come from nowhere. It had been accumulating, one small proximity at a time, in the 18 months of a hallway that was always exactly the right width. She had simply been the one willing to cross it. What would you have done if someone you'd been circling for a year and a half knocked on your door the night you told them you were leaving and asked to come with you? And have you ever held on to something small that belonged to someone else? Not because you forgot to return it, but because returning it meant admitting something you weren't ready to say. Tell me your story in the comments. If this one stayed with you, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.